I'm Caroline Como, co-founder and president of AvoMotion. We're here today to talk a little bit more about who we are and what AvoMotion is. I'm joined by Erin Bresnahan, my business partner.
That's me. I'm Erin. I'm the COO and co-founder of AvoMotion, and we're excited to talk through how we got here, what we're hoping to do, and where to go from there.
Yeah. I think we're two corporate executives that have had quite interesting career paths. And in the past few months, we decided to jump together and create what AvoMotion is today and what it will become. We're building an empire together and hopefully having some significant impact in the business world.
Yeah, I mean, I think we both came from very different roots to get here, but we found each other. I mean, first we've known each other for 15 years. We met at a dinner.
I went to school with her husband.
She did. She went to school with my husband, and then we all got invited to a dinner one day. We met each other, and I was like, this girl is legit. I could just tell. And my husband confirmed. He said, this girl is legit. She just, everything she touches turns to gold. And I was not at all surprised to hear that. And over 15 years, we kind of came in and out of each other's lives, I think.
Yeah.
And then wound up working together at one company and realized that we were sort of work soulmates.
Yeah. We complete each other.
Totally.
In many ways, I think what the past 15 years of knowing each other, what we were able to uncover is that we've got similar values. Yep. I'd like to think that, we are both empathetic, respectful, trustworthy individuals. And as you get older, you become wiser and you try to hang around those type of individuals. So for myself, Erin was always somebody that I looked to, be able to partner with and see how that could evolve together. And when we officially worked together, then we discovered that we had two different brains, but that complemented each other. So it's not a competition. It's more of, wait a minute, together we can be better. And together, that's what we're trying to do right now.
So we launched a company, and we have worked with amazing clients so far, really. And I think that's my favorite part of doing this, is that we get to really understand deeply clients' pain points and sort of apply our expertise to help them solve those, which is just really satisfying and creates long-term relationships, and we get to meet really interesting people who are doing really interesting things in industries, that range from health to nonprofit to everything in between. And so far, it's really been amazing. We work a lot, but we love it.
Absolutely. I spent 20 years in the hotel industry and then 4 years in higher education, all in growth roles, sales, marketing, just making sure that depending on what's going on in the markets, we found the right solution to be able to really achieve what the goals were. One of the things that I've noticed that was the most, eye-opening for me since we've launched AvoMotion is the privilege of working with various industries. When you've worked in just, certain industries, different employers and different experiences, different markets. I've worked globally, but now with AvoMotion, we have the privilege of touching, like Erin said, so many different industries that it's actually enabling us to be able to, I feel, be even more supportive to future clients, because we're able to take a couple of the examples and say, hey, this is what's done in this industry. You might not be aware of it. What can be beneficial for you? So to me, I love the challenge of learning really just various ways of working in various industries that most probably, if I hadn't done this with you, I wouldn't have had the opportunity of jumping in.
I agree. And, no matter the industry, people face the same challenges, and it really is the challenge of how to have impact. Everyone has limited resources, nonprofit, for-profit, everyone is is looking to make an impact, whether it's through ROI or social change. And I feel like the challenges that our clients face are more similar than they might think. So it does allow us to take, a problem from one client and apply it to another, and be really sort of creative with the way that we help our clients address their pain points and solve their problems.
I've always been in industries and roles and led teams where either there was an economic challenge or a political challenge, or we were dealing with a crisis of some sort. And it was often a joke for me in previous roles where I should have like a red telephone on my desk and people would just call Caroline if, they wanted a solution to something. And what I've learned now is being able to make decisions quickly. We're not in an industry where somebody's going to die based on our decisions. So that's something that's important to me. But being able to make decisions quickly to be able to then pivot accordingly, I think that's been critical. And to your point of all these different individuals simply want to have impact, I think that's where we at AvoMotion want to have, the most opportunities to provide. So we've created the return on intention concept. When you think of ROI, you think of return on investment. What we're trying to bring to organizations and what we've observed is that all humans and all individuals have goals that they want to achieve. But life gets in the way. Life is busy. And often executives and leaders find themselves at the end of the day having been extremely busy, having done so much throughout the day, but not necessarily feeling impactful. And that's where return on intention comes into play, because you've got to make sure that every action that you take throughout the day, all the guidance that you give the individuals that you're leading, all of these individuals, there's intention as it relates to the action that they're going to take based on the values and the priorities that you've set in place for your organization.
Great.
I think that return on intention is a core concept that if more and more organizations really took the time to step back and say, hey, am I doing the right thing at the right time? You would have a culture in the organization of individuals that feel impactful. They go to bed at night happy. Life is too short to just feel busy. And you would get to a place where you're actually really achieving all of the targets that you're putting into place.
I think organizations really need to understand how to meet people where they are, understand how they view purpose and impact, and then communicate the strategy in a way where anybody, anywhere in the organization understands what they do on a daily basis and how that impacts the overall strategy and the overall impact of the organization. So I think that's really key, because the things people value are changing,
and that's okay.
And that's, exactly. And organizations, I think, need to shift with them.
Yeah. But you know what they have to do, though, to be able to shift and make that move is you've got to let go of things that you've been doing for a long period of time.
And that's hard to do. So, it's hard to do for me in my own life. Yeah. And it's hard to do sometimes for us in our company, to have gone so far with something and then decide that actually maybe it's not going to work and let it go. So we understand it's a really hard thing to do. But ultimately it benefits, individuals in their own lives, but also organizations when they're trying to really do more with less, with finite resources and infinite needs.
Yeah. If you don't try something, you don't know what the result is going to be.
Mais c'est ça.
So, on l'essaye, puis...
On l'essaye, oui.
And then you put it into place.
Yeah.
We had a great session with a client about 2 weeks ago. We were invited to facilitate a session at a retreat for the entire organization. And when we talked about return on intention, we also talked about your return on time invested. So we're coming out with all these acronyms, ROI, ROTI, all of these different things. But the attention that we got and the eyes opened significantly all the way to the leader, because as a leader, you've got to keep that in mind. If you might be the one creating all the fires and you might be the one redirecting the team with good intention, but you've got to understand that you've got to stick to a certain plan understanding there's a buffer, maybe of 25%, because, things happen and you've got to adjust accordingly. But in order to be able to scale and grow, the intention that you have every single day on what you're working on and the time that you're spending on certain activities is critical.
Agreed. I think, that applies to, so I have a background in the nonprofit sector, working in research institutions and universities. So I bring the data brain, I bring the analytical brain to this duo. And, I've found that applies across sectors, whether you're in a university research institution or whether you're in a sustainability nonprofit or whether you're in, a video production company. Yeah. It really sort of, the same principles apply, I think, across them.
Well, I think we're all humans trying to do something good, trying to be impactful. We're all individuals that no matter what industry or what world that you're in, you want to be able to feel that you did something positive. And the moment that you're able to create that within your team, that's when you'll see actually the productivity and the efforts accomplishing what you're trying to put into place.
Which applies to us too, we sat down together and we said, are we going to do this? And we looked at each other and we were like, we really do think we can have an impact. So, and we really think that, we make the joke that the shareholder agreement is more intense than a marriage contract. And so Absolutely. Here we are together and we decided really we are going to do this together and we want to have a long-term impact. But it was quite the discussion. I mean, to decide to start a business with someone is no small decision, right? Yeah. And so
you've got to love it.
You've got to love it. And you have to really make sure you can spend a lot of time. I think especially at the, beginning, we were spending more time together than we were with our own families. Yeah. And I
think that's going to continue though.
I agree. And
we're trying to build something impactful together. And I think that there's just so many ways. Yeah. It's actually putting ourselves in a place where we got to go step by step. But I wish there were more hours in the day.
Seriously.
Right?
Because
we've got good ideas.
We have good ideas. And, we both go at 150%.
Yeah.
All the time. And we both have a really solid sense of humor, which I think is going to serve us well in the long term because we laugh a lot. And, I laugh at Caroline's bad jokes and she laughs at my bad jokes. And I think that's part of what keeps us sane, but also helps us be creative. We take the time to step away for a moment and then turn back to whatever task we're trying to accomplish or whatever pain point we're trying to solve for a client.
Yeah.
And so it really, I think, helps with creativity. And
I wouldn't want to do this alone.
I wouldn't either. It's lonely. It would be lonely.
A company, yes. It's every single day I think we learn something brand new.
Agreed.
I think that people in the corporate world take certain things for granted. And then when you jump out, we call ourselves corporate escapees, you find yourself in a position where you've got to do a little bit of everything and learn a lot of skills that, you had team members do that for you. And I feel that it's a nice place to be in your life when you're able to be open to wanting to learn to do new things. But I wouldn't want to do that alone. And I like that sounding board and the feedback received and somebody questioning what I'm working on as well. Because to the point of wanting to be impactful to the people with whom we work with, one point of view isn't sufficient. So it's good to be able to be surrounded by different types of perspectives so that we can actually offer something that has been considered with different mindsets.
Yeah, and we do have healthy debates sometimes. That's what I call them, healthy debates, where we come at something from completely different angles and we usually take the best of each point of view and arrive at something that's really good. And that's what I love about doing this with a partner.
Yeah. You know why we're able to do that? Because we're both married.
That's true.
And let's be honest. So we've been married for a long period of time. we're both mothers. We each have 2 children. So I'm sure in your household, like in mine, there's a lot of negotiation. There's a lot of compromise. And there's just a lot of discussion of understanding that, respectful of what every individual brings to the table that adds value. But I think that maybe 20 years ago, we wouldn't have been able to do what we're doing right now because we don't have all that baggage and all that experience that we have today. And all that
experience.
Let's go with experience. But we wouldn't have had all of the different situations and scenarios. We've moved, we've lived in different countries. We've, have had to adapt to so many different things.
Agreed.
Right? And I think that, hey, this whole world has gone through a global pandemic, for Pete's sake.
And so that fundamentally changed everybody.
Yeah.
I think it's fundamentally changed work forever. The way people work, the idea of needing to be physically in a place in order to be productive. That maybe applies in some cases, but it certainly isn't the truth in all cases. And I think finally, as a society, we've realized that. I would agree that, 13 years of happy marriage, but has definitely taught me some skills. But also, I don't think that I would have been good at this 15 or 20 years ago.
No, me either.
Because, we're, talking about global. Yeah. I mean, I've, in 15 years, I worked with organizations around the world, a lot of advocacy organizations who were working on changing laws. And it really helped me understand that perseverance of one or even a small group of people can make an immeasurable difference for thousands, tens of thousands, or even sometimes hundreds of thousands. And that's a lesson that I take with me everywhere, to every mandate with a client, to my life, to my business partnership. So I think both of us, having lived in different countries, I mean, I lived in the Rwandan jungle for a couple of months.
You weren't wearing that.
Back in the day. And that was an experience, no running water, no electricity, no nothing, and trying to make impact with running a program there. And so the sum of my life experiences and my nonprofit experiences and my experiences in corporate, I think, have really shaped me into having a unique perspective on things.
100%.
No,
absolutely. And it's capturing all those learnings.
Well, that's it.
To be able to then share that with other individuals, I think that makes a huge difference. When I moved, my entire family, we went to the United States and had to come back during the pandemic. Mm-hmm. That's not something that I had planned, selling a house and quarantine and just the aspect of going through that was really interesting. But in my different roles, I've had an individual tell me, and this is somebody that I led a team that was based out of Shanghai. And the CEO there was saying, Caroline, as you move along in the corporate ladder, as you touch different things, you actually just become a glorified project manager. And I'll always remember that because you know what? He was right. In that, to be able to get all of these different things done, to be able to move teams along, to be able to really try to achieve the goals that you're putting into place. A role as a leader is someone that's going to make sure that everybody's checking the right action that they need to accomplish. And when you see it in that perspective of like, okay, this is the big picture, this is what we need to get to, I'm going to break it down for you guys, and then let's achieve it one thing at a time. Professionally and personally, that's helped me a lot to stay grounded. And same thing as growing this company, of us saying, okay, wait a minute, is this where we want to go? Is this what needs to happen? Is this what we should be doing today versus in a month from now versus 6 months from now? How do we prioritize?
But that's, I think, the hallmark. One of the real strengths of a good leader is being able to see the big picture, but then being able to translate that to the people who are working for you in a way that galvanizes them to want to work towards that common goal. You know, and I think that also sort of speaks to soft skills and how hard skills are, you know, what people need in terms of hard skills is changing so quickly now that soft skills are becoming really this new sort of most sought after skill set out there. You know, the ability to empathize, to be able to meet someone where they are, to be able to put yourself in their shoes and understand, you know, their wins and their challenges, you know, is a more rare skill than I would have thought, and one that I think is really going to put people ahead, you know?
Absolutely.
And 10 years ago, if someone had said that empathy was a competitive advantage, I think they would have looked at us like we were crazy, but,
well,
you know.
One thing that we often said, so when we launched AvoMotion, we've had multiple conversations on who do we want to help? How do we want to help them? Why do we want to help them? And one of the things that we laughed a lot about was the lack of common sense.
Yes.
And so to your point, you would think that, you know, empathy and just being an individual that is going to put themselves in somebody else's shoes is natural, but sometimes it isn't. So there's a mix of letting people be genuine to whom they, you know, to themselves. That's super important. So you've got to be who you are. I think that that's really important to be able to shine to the best of your ability. If you're trying to be somebody else, it's not going to work.
100%.
Right? But if you're not really trying to put yourself in the shoes of the individual with whom you're working with whom you're trying to guide, with whom you're trying to support, it's going to take a while for you to get to your goal.
One thing too that I sort of had as an unofficial rule when I was a leader, and one thing that I bring to mandates when we are working with clients, is to think critically, you know, about the current state, critically in a good way. So I had a rule, or I think you had, we both had a rule where if I ask why something is the way that it is, the answer should never be because it's always been that way, you know? So as a leader, I always encouraged people to think about why something was the way that it was so that they could lead innovation. And that, I think, is an approach that we both take when we work with clients too, you know, is to just ask, why is this specific process this way? Why is this data structured in that way? Why are these the KPIs, for example? So to really sort of question what's in plain sight in a respectful way, with the goal of trying to sort of, you know, help clients get to that next level.
It's finding the balance between, sometimes you got to go back to basics.
Totally.
Sometimes you've put so many things in place that you get lost and you actually forget why you were doing what you wanted to do and how to do it because you wanted to be so sophisticated. But meanwhile, there's so many things evolving right now. You've got to jump onto the bandwagon of AI. You've got to figure out what's the ideal tool to use to automate things. It's there for you to use. So it's finding that balance. And I think that that's really crucial because the human aspect will never leave and we don't want it to. What a human can bring to the table is extremely valuable. Versus how can you make sure that that individual is as productive and as insightful and as valuable you want them to be while utilizing everything that society now has to offer.
Yeah, and with AI, you know, AI, I mean, you can't go half a day without hearing about AI somewhere. So you know, one of the big challenges I think for every organization is how can AI help make some things better, but also recognizing that human brains are a part of the equation and that will never change. So what part of AI can accomplish, you know, repeatable tasks better, repetitive tasks? And then where do the brains need to come in? You know, so AI is a big one for sure, but then it comes back to the soft skills, right? And the critical thinking skills. And people who can even, you know, because AI is wrong sometimes. People who can look at AI and say, that doesn't make sense. I'm going to dig a little more deeply and then find that actually the source that AI gave you wasn't right. You know, that happens sometimes.
You got to be careful.
Well, that's it. And that comes back to those soft skills, I think. So it's definitely been a journey. I can't believe I just used that word.
The journey that we're on is
wild. It's wild.
I think so. You know what I've uncovered is the world of smaller businesses like ourselves. So we're so far just a duo. Watch out what's going to happen in the future.
One day.
One day. Right now we're just a duo. But what we've uncovered as support and guidance and just genuine care to see us succeed, that to me has been just fabulous. The moment we launched AvoMotion and we announced that Erin and I were doing this together, first of all, the people that know us both and the people that have worked with us went boom.
That makes total sense.
Exactly. Those two together will create something amazing. So reassuring for us, right? We were like, okay, we're not the only ones that just thought about this.
Because it's scary. When we put that announcement out there, you know, we were like, okay, we put it on LinkedIn and then we kind of sat back and we were like, what if nobody reads it? What if we get no response? But the response really was overwhelming.
100%. And it still is.
And it still is.
I think we've created a fan club, an indirect fan club of individuals. And we genuinely want to thank you. Like one day, these individuals will be recognized. But we've been truly blessed to just have individuals that are giving us contacts and guiding us through different programs and helping us and telling us, you know, the things that they maybe made as a mistake when they were launching their companies so that we don't do it.
I agree completely. And so just, you know, to build on what you're saying, what I didn't fully expect was the support for entrepreneurs towards other entrepreneurs, but particularly women entrepreneurs towards other women entrepreneurs. It's been incredible how much, you know, women entrepreneurs just really want to create a community and help each other out. And I love it. And I wasn't expecting it. I thought we would be doing this alone. And I thought it would be like a lonely journey, you know?
That's been our lives to a certain extent. True. I've been on, you know, the only woman around multiple tables, multiple scenarios, multiple pictures. That's been my corporate career. And don't get me wrong, had lots of fun and did a lot of great things and felt listened. So wasn't really, I guess, hadn't experienced the movement that's taking place. And it's something that I thoroughly want to embrace.
Agreed. And we want to help fellow women entrepreneurs and other entrepreneurs in general, not just women. It's a really nice community. And the nonprofit community also I have found to be really, really an incredible community where, you know, tout le monde s'entraide. Everybody wants to help each other out. Connect each other with others who are maybe working on a similar challenge, whether it's in another country or, you know, in another context. And that had been my experience when I was working with organizations globally in health and social policy work. And I have found it to be in the Montreal space, but also across Canada, a really tight-knit community as well. And I think, you know, impact will come when these communities are as strong as they can be. So I'm looking forward to helping to grow the entrepreneurship community, but also the nonprofit community as well.
I think we were smart in wanting to target, you know, nonprofit community, entrepreneurship community, because I know that they feel that we are experiencing the same thing that they're experiencing.
Agreed.
So we're not coming from a cushy, comfortable state with a team of 200 individuals that are going to be helping out. We're genuinely coming from a place where we want to be able to help, we want to have impact, and they see that in us and we see that in them. So there's a lot of similarities, and that's probably how we've been able to connect with just so many of these clients so far, in that we really genuinely understand the grit that takes place and what we need to put into place to help them out, because they feel that we're experiencing that as well in our day-to-day.
Agreed. And they know that they're getting Caroline and Erin. You know, we're not We're not passing the work off. We are doing the work. We're putting in the hours. Everything from A to Z is really us. And, because so far our clients have been people we know or people, who are two degrees away, it really, I think has been a competitive advantage for us to date.
Yeah.
So.
No, it's been interesting.
We aim to deliver 200%.
On a le privilège d'être basé à Montréal. On a le privilège de pouvoir aider plusieurs PME, des incubateurs. Il y a tellement d'innovation ici à Montréal et au Québec, je dirais en général.
Absolument, oui.
Qu'on apprend beaucoup d'eux. Et puis, ce milieu a accepté AvoMotion avec les bras grands ouverts.
Oui.
On en est très fiers. Et puis, on en est très aussi... on se positionne à un endroit où on peut vraiment aider le Québécois qui veut grandir soit au Québec ou qui veut percer ailleurs. Alors ça, c'est, je pense, quelque chose qu'on amène comme perspective pour ce type d'entreprise-là.
Oui, absolument. Et on travaille avec beaucoup de PME dans le milieu québécois et ils ont vraiment la capacité d'avoir un grand impact.
Oui.
Un grand impact. Et on aime beaucoup, beaucoup nous asseoir avec eux et leur diriger dans leur in their journey à croître.
Oui, absolument. Je pense que on a l'opportunité ici au Québec d'aider les gens à vraiment démontrer à l'extérieur toutes les belles choses qui se passent. Et puis peut-être que c'est pas naturel, parce que il y a des organisations avec qui on travaille qui sont peut-être dans des endroits un petit peu plus lointains du centre-ville, qui se retrouvent dans des milieux quand même plus restreints. Alors ils vont bien de ce point de vue-là. Puis là, quand ils ressortent, ça peut être quelque chose de différent, de nouveau.
Oui.
Et j'aime croire qu'on peut supporter ce type de PME-là, spécialement parce que, justement, on amène les deux perspectives.
Oui, exactement. Le perspective globale, en ayant habité et travaillé dans plusieurs pays entre nous deux, en ayant géré des organisations dans plusieurs pays entre nous deux, je sais pas, au plus que 20, c'est sûr.
Absolument.
Oui, et on a vraiment travaillé avec les clients chez nous aussi.
Absolument.
Au Québec. Et ça fait partie de notre stratégie.
ADN.
Oui, exactement, de notre ADN.
C'est l'ADN d'AvoMotion.
Oui, absolument.
Oui, parce que le Québec nous a tellement donné, le Canada aussi, et les autres pays ailleurs. Oui.
De toutes tes expériences professionnelles, lequel a été vraiment le plus difficile à trouver une solution où il y a quelque chose de vraiment inattendu qui est arrivé, auquel tu as trouvé une solution qui a été vraiment innovante?
Mais tu sais, alors, dans une ancienne vie, j'ai été dans le monde de l'hôtellerie et un de mes rôles, c'était de travailler avec les propriétaires. Alors souvent, oui, exactement.
Okay.
Alors souvent, quand on dit qu'on travaille en hôtellerie, on pense quelqu'un à la réception, que j'ai fait d'ailleurs. On pense aux serveurs, on pense qu'ils sont tous très importants, housekeeping et tout.
Oui.
Moi, j'ai travaillé pour la maison mère pendant 10 ans. Alors, head office. Et le but ultime d'une compagnie hôtelière, c'est d'avoir le plus d'hôtels possible dans les différents marchés. Alors, le rôle que j'avais, c'est de travailler avec ces propriétaires d'hôtels-là. Je me souviendrai toujours, j'étais à une conférence au Texas. Et puis, c'était la conférence annuelle avec un bon groupe de propriétaires. Et étant la Canadienne présente, c'est sûr et certain que quand on est Canadien ailleurs...
seule?
Ben oui, dans ces équipes-là, absolument. J'étais la seule Canadienne. C'est sûr et certain que quand on est dans ces environnements-là, les autres Canadiens, on se retrouve, on se connaît, on se voit. Et quelque chose qui, à ce jour, puis ça me donne même des frissons aujourd'hui, il y a une dame qui est venue me voir, puis elle m'a dit, « Caroline, on n'a pas encore eu la chance de travailler ensemble. Je sais que tu t'occupes des différents propriétaires à travers le monde pour mes bannières. Moi, je suis dans une région en ce moment qui a beaucoup de difficultés. Alors, elle était en Alberta. Et c'était quand il y a eu la crise du oil and gas. Et dans le monde de l'hôtellerie, là, le nombre de gens qui ont bâti des hôtels dans ces villes-là, pensant être multimillionnaires, mais ne pensant pas qu'il y aurait possiblement des gros défis, ont été surpris. Alors, la dame est venue me voir. Elle est propriétaire de 2 hôtels, une femme brillante, larmes aux yeux. Et elle me dit, j'ai aucune idée comment je vais payer mes employés dans 2 semaines. Et c'est là que j'ai réalisé ce type d'individu-là qui voulait faire quelque chose de bien pour sa communauté, pour sa ville, pour son environnement, en bâtissant un hôtel, en mettant les choses en place, en créant des emplois, se retrouvait dans une situation catastrophique, vraiment.
Oui.
Parce que à la fin de la journée, tous ces gens-là, on a des familles, on a des enfants, on doit manger, on doit vivre.
Oui.
Alors, j'ai dit à la dame, qu'est-ce que vous faites cet après-midi? On va trouver les bonnes personnes pour pouvoir vous aider. Et j'ai pris la dame qui pleurait à ce niveau-là. Elle pleurait. Parce qu'on le sait, hein.
Le stress
est énorme. La pression, elle est énorme. On sait que quand on fait quelque chose, on ne veut pas que les gens autour de nous soient déçus. Notre but ultime, c'est d'avoir du succès, c'est de pouvoir aider les gens. Et là, elle se retrouvait vraiment dans une situation difficile, hors de son contrôle. Parce qu'à un moment donné, dans le monde de l'hôtellerie, s'il y a personne qui voyage dans cette ville-là, il y a personne qui voyage dans cette ville-là.
Oui.
Alors, qu'est-ce qu'on va faire?
Oui.
Et la décision que j'ai prise, c'est de prendre cette dame-là. Et étant donné qu'on était à cette conférence, c'était, on dit, a blessing in disguise. Parce que j'ai pu trouver des experts avec différentes expertises qui sont venus s'asseoir avec nous, puis on a passé toute l'après-midi ensemble. Alors, j'ai trouvé des gens qui pouvaient l'aider avec les services à la clientèle. Des gens qui pourraient s'assurer qu'elle soit l'hôtel dans cette ville-là où les voyageurs qui restent, ils vont coucher là. Et nulle part d'autre. Puis qu'est-ce qu'on va faire pour mettre ça en place? C'est pas une question de baisser ses prix, puis d'ouvrir les portes, puis de dire qu'on est gratuit, puis on est au dépourvu. C'était plus une question de qu'est-ce qu'on va faire pour que toi, tu puisses ressortir dans ton marché pour avoir du succès. Alors, quand on met toute cette expertise-là en place, quand on a eu cette conversation-là, je me souviendrai, là, on était on a trade show floor, comme on dit, puis on était tous assis autour de la madame pour pouvoir l'aider.
Oui.
La bannière a pu la supporter financièrement, temporairement, pour s'assurer que, justement, elle ferme pas ses portes.
Oui.
Et 2, qu'est-ce qu'on a pu faire? C'est vraiment mettre un task force en place. Rendre son problème le problème d'autres pour pouvoir avoir l'expertise nécessaire pour pouvoir l'aider et la supporter pendant 2 semaines, 3 semaines, 3 mois, 6 mois pour la faire ressortir et respirer. Et tout ça pour dire que elle a surmonté le défi, là. Et à la fin de la journée, elle ne pleurait plus parce qu'elle sentait qu'elle avait un plan en place.
Oui.
Et puis que c'était quelque chose de réaliste. C'était quelque chose qu'elle était capable de mettre en place. Là. On n'est pas arrivé puis on a dit, il va falloir que tu investisses 15 millions pour changer ta bâtisse. Personne va vouloir coucher chez vous.
Non.
Qu'est-ce qu'on a fait? C'est qu'on a dit, voici avec qu'est-ce que tu as, qu'est-ce qu'on peut mettre en place qui est d'une façon concrète avec l'équipe que tu as en place. Puis il va falloir que, se retrousser les manches.
Oui.
Il va falloir que les gens donnent les bouchées doubles, comme on dit, mais il va falloir que tu ne le feras pas toute seule. Et cette expérience-là a changé ma perspective pour toujours. C'était la première fois que quelqu'un m'arrivait en pleurant. Tu sais, on travaille, on fait nos choses, on pense qu'on a une bonne journée, on pense qu'on a un impact. Mais là, j'avais une dame devant moi, très émotionnelle, qui avait une grosse inquiétude. Puis l'inquiétude, là, c'était, je ne peux pas payer les gens pour qu'ils puissent nourrir leurs enfants.
Oui.
Et ça m'a touchée.
C'est l'empathie.
Oui, tu as absolument raison. Puis ça m'a touchée. Je me suis dit, vous avez absolument raison de réagir de cette façon-là. C'est comme ça que vous devrez réagir.
Oui, absolument. Oui.
Parce qu'on est tous une grande famille ici sur cette planète. Puis on va vous aider. Et depuis ce temps-là, c'est comme ça que je vois chaque individu avec qui je travaille. L'impact que cet individu-là a dans la société, les emplois qu'elle crée, les bouches qu'elle nourrit, c'est quelque chose qui n'est pas loin dans ma vision lorsque je suis en train d'entraider quelqu'un.
Et l'entraide, comme tu viens de dire.
Ouais.
Ce qu'on expérience nous-mêmes à AvoMotion, et ça fait partie de notre ADN.
Absolument. Mais parce qu'on veut avoir de l'impact.
Oui. Oui. Non, absolument.
Hein?
Et l'entraide qu'on expérience, c'est un peu what goes around comes around, you
Absolument.
know?
Toi, qu'est-ce qui est intéressant, Erin, dans ton parcours professionnel, c'est l'aspect, je dirais, gouvernemental. Alors, les différentes politiques que tu as vues, tu as mis en place et où tu as su comment défendre dans différents scénarios, ont fait que tu as une autre perspective aussi de l'aspect, je dirais, légal, l'aspect gouvernemental de qu'est-ce qu'on peut faire, qu'est-ce qu'on peut pas faire. Et puis, je pense que ça serait intéressant d'en apprendre plus.
Yeah, exactly. It's, you know, a lot of change. What I've learned is a lot of change worth making takes perseverance and time and strategy and a collective. And, you know, so I worked with the United Nations, with advocacy organizations around the world, with governments, with ministers. And what I was helping to do was translate all of the data that our research center produced. And that was data on the laws that people have in various countries. So, for example, you know, does Canada have a minimum age of child marriage? Does
it?
Ghana? Yes.
What is it?
I'd have to go check. It's been a while. Does the United States have a national maternity leave policy law? The answer is no. And they're one of 5 countries in the world that don't. So that's something to think about. And so really, what I learned to do was to translate data into a compelling story that people could use to make change in their own contexts, in their own countries. And we saw, you know, over the time that I was there, countries passed better laws in the areas that we, you know, helped provide the data for. Constitutions got changed. And so I think that skill of taking data and translating it into a story that is really, really compelling and that resonates in the context that you're in is a super, you know, was a really, really important skill for me to develop. Yeah. And so, you know, I took data to the United Nations and together, you know, we submitted information on how countries were outliers and how they could pass certain laws to sort of, you know, get up to speed and be with their fellow regional counterparts.
Must have been interesting.
It was really interesting and
eye-opening, maybe.
eye-opening. I mean, you know, maternity leave. There's no national maternity leave law. We're both mothers. And I actually had my first child in the United States. And he went to daycare after 3 or 4 months. And part of that time for me was unpaid, you know, and it just sort of was the thing that people did, you know, and so part of what we did was, c'était sensibiliser le monde que leur situation était hors de l'ordinaire. Parce que beaucoup d'Américaines pensaient que c'était comme ça partout au monde. Et on a dit, en fait, non, on a un an chez nous au Canada. Ouais. See, so it's really the idea of, you know, sensibiliser le monde et leur donner les outils pour faire le changement eux-mêmes. And that is a skill set, I think, that is really useful for me in my work now, because I can look at information and say, what is it that is going to make the case for the thing that needs to be done? What are the right questions to ask?
And how can you, I think one of the great skill set that they developed for you is, how are you able to convert that So an individual like myself that doesn't have that experience can understand what's going on.
Well, that's it. Exactly. Right.
Remove the fanciness of everything in the structure
Exactly.
and try to make it more approachable.
Exactly. And, in our case, it was a lot of, well, okay, laws are important, but what happens on the ground is really the ultimate thing, and we have to sort of show how fundamentally having the thing in place in the first place is what gets the job done. And that's not unlike strategic planning, for example, right? You have to have the foundational sort of guidance in place to be able to then mandate all of the activities that follow and to improve the situation of a nonprofit or of an entreprise. We speak this like sort of English-French situation known as franglais.
Yes, it's typical for Montreal.
It's typical for Montreal.
Do you remember where you were September 11th?
I was in a classroom. I was in a management science class in undergrad. And we were one of the only schools that had computers. And so everyone started, I'm going to date myself here, but we all had ICQ, and everybody's ICQ started going, and I think that sort of also was a fundamental shift.
Agreed.
Were you in the States?
No, I lived in Ottawa then.
Okay.
I lived in Ottawa, and everything, shut down because we didn't know what was happening. But I joined the hotel industry right after. And the reason why I say that, I've always found myself in different scenarios where, I need that red telephone. Like September 11th arrives, so then everybody stopped traveling. I just talked about the oil and gas crisis that occurred out west. Hurricanes, tornadoes, putting down, wiping out entire cities. Wars, unfortunately, and things of that nature, pandemics. But what we did at every single occasion was really to break things down to make it
always
snackable.
Exactly.
Because, so you go through your first 15 minutes of despair where everybody's like, oh no, what's going to happen? What are we going to do? It's the end of the world. And then you've got to, figure it out and then say, okay, how am I going to break this down so that everybody, no matter where they are, what their expertise is, will understand the actions that need to take place.
Exactly.
New York City was a city that was hit extremely hard. I remember spending a lot of time in New York City for multiple years because the hotel industry there, you've been to New York, there's like 36 hotels per block.
Yep.
The competition is fierce.
Right.
So why would somebody stay at one door versus the other door, which is literally 10 feet away, right? So that for me was a real nice learning experience, actually having to work with that market, because you really have to find a way to stand out, and you really have to make sure that your team is working on the right things, because the customer, the consumer, has ample choice.
I agree. And I'm really thankful for one of the first professional experiences I had, which was to build an entirely new department in an existing company. And I remember they sat me down and they said, here's your computer, go make this department, make it profitable, find the suppliers, find the clients, go. And at that time, it was a really small startup that later scaled to be a very large company and sold to an even larger one. But the skills I learned when you're only, maybe a dozen people in a company were really incredible. You wear all the hats. You know exactly how far you are from the bottom line. You know that every single decision you make every day impacts that bottom line. You learn how to create. You learn how to be resourceful. You learn how to turn nothing into something. And having done that, it really gave me the confidence to know that I could build anything if I just put my mind to it. And so when we came to start AvoMotion, I was like, we just have to do it. We have to make the right decisions, pivot when we need to, work hard, be creative, be strategic, build. And here we are. And it's the same philosophy I bring to our work with clients, having built something on my own like that was successful. I understand the perspective of an entrepreneur who's trying to build something, and I can empathize, I can offer solutions. And so I couldn't have asked for a better first work experience. And I spent 4 years in that role. And it really shaped me, and it really gave me the confidence that anything was possible.
Absolutely.
Anything, with perseverance and with strategy.
And I think that anything is possible if you're willing to learn and evolve
and fail
grow.
Fast and get up again, you know,
Exactly.
and fail fast, pick yourself up and keep going.
We only have one life to live, right? So, well, that's what most of us say. Apparently, maybe there's more. But
words of wisdom over here.
One thing that I've truly felt has invigorated me in my career is my opportunities of significantly changing and transforming sales teams.
100%.
They are moments where I've done them in a very structured way with, you know, a lengthy process, and others where we had to pivot extremely quickly and make really quick decisions.
Hard, quick decisions.
It taught me, again, goes back to empathy in humans.
Yeah.
So working with people in their jobs and their roles and changing that. So finding ways to get everybody on board to adapt accordingly, or else, you know, they would have to jump ship.
And that comes back to good leadership, right? It's figuring out ways to get everybody on board enthusiastically. That to me, again, is one of the big markers of an excellent leader. And
it's trying to get them engaged in the process as much as possible. Because, you know, we've got to be, things need to move along, right? And the leader has a specific role in order to make things move along. So certain times you've got to just say, okay, now moving to the next opportunity. But transforming teams enabled me to quickly find out what skill set and what type of individual is needed, no matter the scenario in which you're in. And individuals that have had the privilege of going through harder times are adaptable, flexible, and have the agility.
Mais c'est la résilience.
Mais c'est ça. Puis ils prennent pas personnel. Parce qu'ils réalisent que la situation dans laquelle ils se retrouvent, elle est différente.
Oui. Puis ça n'a rien à faire avec eux non plus.
Exactement. Il faut qu'ils changent, puis il faut qu'ils s'adaptent. Puis qu'ils mettent ça en place. Donc, ces transformations-là que j'ai mis en place à travers les différentes années, il y en a qui ont été difficiles, évidemment, parce qu'on fait affaire avec des gens, mais autant qui ont été très positives à long terme. Et je pense que chaque entreprise doit prendre le temps avant de regarder son équipe, on veut juste s'assurer qu'ils ont le bon produit, la bonne offre, et puis qu'ils ont la bonne audience par rapport à ça. Puis ensuite, lorsque ça s'est établi, déterminer est-ce qu'ils ont les bons individus pour l'accomplir.
Oui, absolument. Et c'est pour ça que je pense que chaque organisation devrait avoir vraiment une très bonne planification stratégique. Un plan stratégique qui résonne, qui est mis à jour, qui a un plan d'action qui va avec pour que le monde sache exactement qu'est-ce qu'il faut faire. C'est-à-dire, il faut vraiment, comme à chaque 3-5 années, s'asseoir et dire, est-ce qu'on travaille sur les bonnes choses? C'est quoi impact? Pour nous, qu'est-ce que ça veut dire impact? Comment on s'y rend?
Mais c'est pas tous les leaders qui veulent prendre le temps de le faire.
Parce qu'on découvre parfois des choses qu'on veut pas voir. Mais c'est comme ça comme organisation, qu'on s'améliore.